Hi! Welcome to the INTJ and Cat Show. I've decided to continue on without ENFP, but just with my trusty buddy Archie. Say hello to everybody, Archie. Today, Archie and I are going to discuss FE. I know, that periodical table of element, iron. So steel yourself for a great topic of discussion.
Hey. What's going on in here? What are you doing?
Say hello.
Archie, what are you doing on the... Are you recording?
Archie,
I thought we were doing our podcast today.
Archie and I decided to continue on without you, as you've had to cancel on us for several occasions.
Is this a joke?
Do I look like I'm joking?
I mean, you do joke about a lot of things. Is this serious?
Well...
You're actually recording this? Archie, what are you doing here? Are you betraying me too?
He's helping!
Did you already do the intro?
We're talking about iron today!
You didn't even bring my mic out or anything. Wow. Wow. I can't believe this. Well, hey guys, we're back. We're back. Not we. We're back. This is the INTJ and ENFP podcast. It's been a while. Last episode was the Halloween episode, which we actually did film before Halloween, and I didn't upload it till December. Almost Christmas time. So, why don't we talk about why we've been gone? And hopefully I'm not too loud. That's a problem of mine, as I tend to be too loud. But, and I tend to talk a lot. Speaking of talking, let's talk about why we disappeared.
We took an unplanned sabbatical.
Here's a hint. It's me. I'm the problem. It's me.
Oh, hey, Taylor.
I hate Taylor Swift, but it is me, and I am the problem.
Well...
Do you want to discuss that?
Yeah, so you got bogged down quite a bit.
Does Archie need to be here? I mean, I'm fine with it.
He can do what he wants.
Well, I think he's thinking of leaving. Hi, honey. You gonna go? Oh, he didn't even want to be pet. Bye.
Yeah, you stole the spotlight from him.
I know, I'm sorry. All right,
well.
Thank you for not taking down the camera when you jumped. Okay. So, also, we're trying to not make these as long, so let's hope we actually stay on topic.
You forgot to shut the door when you barged in here.
Hmm?
You forgot to shut the door when you barged in here.
Hold on, I'm going to close the door, and you tell them why we've been gone for so long.
Yeah, so as I was saying,
So passive.
ENFP, my counterpart, got just really bogged down with school assignments and her personal life and things like that, and we weren't able to keep it going in the schedule. So I just thought that I would go on and just kind of do my own spin on the podcast with my cat.
Apparently.
And just talk about things that I think we would all be interested in, like science.
The periodic table. We're talking about FE.
Iron.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. It's just like our episodes, and I'm a perfectionist, and we really wanted it to be, good, and so I would edit our episodes, which, we've only done 2 or 3 so far, but it just became so daunting of a task, and it felt like this huge weight on my shoulders, like, okay, I have to edit it this weekend or something, and I just would never get done, because I'm so busy, and I felt like I had other priorities.
Yeah, she would get overwhelmed, and
yeah,
and then she would go into an ENFP, like, FE,
spiral.
No, not FE, NE, like, explosion, where she's deciding to chase other things because there's not as much pressure, and kind of spiraling around. So we've got about 50 unfinished projects right now.
Yeah, so we're trying to get back to this.
Yes.
And while this episode isn't live, something we want to do is actually just start doing this live. And we're going to upload it after it's live. So even if you're not there live, you can join us live. And maybe we could even answer questions live if you happen to be there. And you can ask us questions in chat. But other than that, we're going to upload it after so you can watch it later. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that kind of will help take a weight off my shoulders for it. We can actually just do it. It feels more freeing that way. And even though we're recording this one, I'm going to try not to, like, edit it or anything. Just keep it raw footage and put it up. Kind of like if it were live.
Yeah.
We tried to go live today, but apparently there was an issue with YouTube, so...
YouTube tricked us.
We have to wait till
that
the next
sneaky
time.
devil. YouTube.
Also, yes, we're talking about FE today, which is... Archie's scratching his...
Oh, okay. Sorry.
We have... we're the life of cats here. We just have a lot of cats. Sorry. So, we're talking about FE, which is...
FE Trinket from the
Iron.
Hunger Games.
We're talking about FE Trinket, which is actually... I think she's a ENFJ, so that's... Or ESFJ,
Yeah.
I don't remember.
FE, Cognitive Function.
Probably ESFJ. So, FE is iron, but that's not what we're talking about in this podcast. In this podcast, we talk about Myers-Briggs. So we're talking about extroverted feeling. So far, we've talked about extroverted intuition, and...
That's it.
That's it, actually. So now we're doing extroverted feeling. Next, we're going to do extroverted thinking.
Yeah. Cognitive functions.
Yeah. So if you don't know what we're talking about, what the heck is extroverted feeling and all this, it is part of Myers-Briggs. I don't think a lot of people that know Myers-Briggs, like on the surface, know what the cognitive functions are and everything.
Yeah.
We've already talked about this.
Yeah, a lot of people, when they're introduced to Myers-Briggs, they're just like, okay, the letters, introvert, extrovert. And we went into this kind of in-depth in a previous episode, probably our first episode. But we really care about the cognitive functions, which are kind of what drive your personality through the Myers-Briggs, or the element of your personality that is expressed through Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, and again, if you don't know, Myers-Briggs is based on the work of Carl Jung. That's where all of these cognitive functions come from. So FE, NE, SI, all of them, there's 8 of them, they come from Carl Jung. So if you don't know what we're talking about, that's okay. If you want to learn about it, you can go and watch our previous episodes. Probably the first and second one are going to help the most.
That's because that's all there is.
So, yeah. So probably the first one you're going to want to watch. Or I guess the second one we talk about cognitive functions.
Watch them all.
Watch them all, as in watch them both. Or, there's a lot of content online about the cognitive functions.
And Dr. Professor Phil Ducktree will not be joining us today.
Not today. Today is 50's housewife, Ducktree. Speaking of, so we're talking about FE. As we mentioned, if you're familiar with this, then you understand, but all the cognitive functions, for every cognitive function, there are going to be 2 of the 16 personality types that share it as a dominant function. Any of them. So, NE, for me, there are 2 Myers-Briggs types that have NE as their dominant. That's the ENFP and ENTP. The TP. And then
Toilet paper.
Today we're talking about FE. So the 2 dominant types we're going to be discussing are ENFJ and ESFJ. But also, as we learned before in the other episode, you can also have that as an auxiliary function or even as any of the others. But 2 of the other types that are relevant for FE would be INFJ and ISFJ. They also both use FE, but for them, it's their secondary function. So we're not going to focus too much on them. We're going to save them for each of their dominant functions later on. But I want to focus more on ENFJ and ESFJ because that makes it a little bit more simple. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of stuff to share about those types anyway.
We actually don't have as much as we could because neither of us have FE in our function stack. So we can't speak out of our own experiences, like firsthand, but we can speak through like how we've experienced other people and the stories that they've told us.
Yeah. I'm doing blueberry ASMR over here. You guys want sweet tea ASMR?
You scared Koshka?
She's fine. So, I'm glad you mentioned that because I almost forgot. But yeah, neither of us have FE in our stacks. For both of us, we use FI. For her, it's her 3rd in her stack because remember, we have 4 in our conscious stack. Hers is her 3rd. For me, it's my secondary. So I'm much more familiar with FI, but Also, I would say I'm probably more familiar with FE as well because I have two people in my family, my mom and my sister, who use FE. So I'm more familiar with it, but I don't fully understand it, right, because I use FI. And we're going to get to FI later, and we'll discuss it more in another episode when we get to that episode. But we will touch on it here because we want to kind of compare the two so you can understand the difference and why maybe it's harder for us to understand and relate to FE because it is very outside of our experience personally.
Yeah, and when we were kind of looking at like our exposure to FE, my major exposure to FE is just really through my sister, and I also haven't like lived with my sister or like been in close proximity and contact to my sister in
A long
over
time.
10 years.
Yeah.
So, love you, sister.
That's the same with me and my sister. We haven't had a lot of time together, so it's like the times I am around her, I'm like, oh yeah, FE, there it is. But with my mom, she's INFJ.
And we both get to see your mom pretty frequently.
The way she shows FE is very different, right? That's what's going to happen. So, today we're talking about FE. So, first, we should explain FE. I think the best way to kind of put it in one sentence is FE is all about the feelings of those around you. It's being deeply connected and in tune with the feelings of the group. Not so much yourself, you're more in tune with the group harmony, the group feelings, how are other people feeling around you. This is why a lot of people, like ENFJs and ESFJs, tend to have careers of helping other people and nursing or hospitality, whatever it is. I've also heard that Obama was an ENFJ, which was, like, he's dead. ENFJ, which I totally...
He stopped once he stopped being the current president. He moved on.
I totally believe that just based on what I've seen of him. I mean, like, so a lot of leaders are ENFJs as well. They do make pretty good leaders because, I don't know, it kind of depends. But, you know, maybe a really healthy one would be a good leader because they're very in tune with the group emotions.
Rabbit trail.
Yes.
When you're saying group emotions, just to clarify for my mindset, you're talking more about, like, the entirety of the group, like the needs of the many, over,
generally.
like, every individual's, like...
Generally, because, yeah, I have found people that make better therapists are going to be, like, INFJs or INFPs or types like there are even some NT types that are better with one-on-one connection. I think I've seen a lot of FE types like ENFJ and ESFJ try to do that, but they are much better handling many people, like a group of people. I want to address my outfit because I have to do that, and yours, but I've got my sweet tea and everything. I'm very much giving Southern hospitality and the 50s housewife vibe for many reasons.
Your
First of all,
needs assistance.
She's actually Southern, so she's judging me. But anyway, ESFJs are kind of like stereotypically great hosts or hostesses. They're great with hospitality. So I'm sure like there's a lot of... The South probably breeds ESFJs.
You know what I would probably say, like, when you're thinking, like, typical, like, Steel Magnolias, Southern... You've seen that film, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is going to be a lot of kind of...
That's the ESFJ vibe.
A very ESFJ, like, proper housewife, proper host.
It really
like,
is true.
Pretty deep into the, like, the gossip, but not mean-spiritedly.
So I'm very much trying to give ESFJ today, maybe not ENFJ, but ESFJ because... But also kind of both because every ENFJ and ESFJ I think we both have known are super fashionable. Super fashionable people. Or at least very interested in fashion. Well, I think it's especially like, not just fashion for the sake of fashion, they like high class fashion. They like name brands and like feeling classy.
And I'm wearing this pink tie.
Yeah, I'm not done yet.
Because on Wednesdays...
We'll get there, okay? I'm not done yet. So yes, we are both wearing pink because the other thing is, pretty much this isn't the rule for, okay, don't be in the comments like, that's not true. Okay, this is just generally, for most ESFJ and ENFJs I've known, girl ENFJ and ESFJs tend to be very feminine in my experience. Like, they're really in tune with, like, their femininity and way more girly. And, okay, I get it. No, not all of them are, okay? But a lot of them have been. So there's many layers to this outfit, because also my first roommate ever was an ESFJ, and I freaking loved her. She was so drama and so dramatic, and like, that's super annoying, but also I love it because we need one of the types to entertain us. Like, we need some types to entertain the rest of us. They need to entertain the masses. So I'm okay with the drama as long as I'm not in it, but it is fun to watch from afar. So she was super drama, but I still loved her because she always wore just super vintage, beautiful fashion, always looked gorgeous, would not leave the house. She was British, but very Southern. She just gave off this Southern hospitality. She loved hosting people. So this is a nod to that ESFJ that I know, because she would appreciate this. And yeah, I mean, even the men, even male ESFJs are super fashionable, just super, always look good.
Well, both, right? ENFJs and ESFJ men,
Yes.
like, they tend to be really connected to, like, not just fashion, but it's like how they're going to be perceived by the group.
Yeah.
And set themselves up to be perceived in a really good way so that they can care for the group.
Yeah, and maybe I'm kind of jumping ahead, but this is more of a negative, I guess, and I think we all have a propensity towards things, no matter what your type is. I have a propensity to that's a lot of PR
Propensity
words.
to procrastinate.
Yes, that. A lot of FE, ENFJ and ESFJ, they tend to care more about status, social ranking, and status. I've noticed, they tend to view the world through a lens of, like, ranking and status. And again, if you're a healthier person, maybe you have worked on that and you don't see it that way, but that is a hallmark, I think, of FE, is, like, I know they tend to structure life in that way. Which I don't know if that's all bad. It's just kind of interesting, and I've noticed that.
I would say, yeah. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily bad. There are a lot of, like, organizations in life, like the family organization. The parent has the higher status, than the youngest child.
Right.
And, the children, even there's a birth order status because there's responsibility that goes with it. In a business, there's status. In a non-government organization, there's status. In a group of friends, there's status.
Yeah.
And having kind of that awareness, in the government, there's status. Having that awareness and knowing kind of how to plug in and to, like, nurture a healthy organism and organization is one thing, but becoming, like, self-consumed with being the top of that status thing,
that's where it's unhealthy,
is where it can have a more unhealthy. So everything we talk about is going to kind of have, like, the head and the tail of the coin.
I think that's also another reason why, maybe not as much as an ENTJ, but ENFJs tend to be very competitive. Maybe ESFJs too. They tend to be very competitive. And again, that's not good or bad. It can be good, it can be bad. But that's another reason, is, like, they want to be the best. They want to, like, get there. They want to feel important and be perceived as important by others, whether that's for good reasons or maybe bad reasons, depending on how healthy they are. And I think that's another reason I just can't relate with FE. I don't know about you, but, like...
I'm sorry, I was looking at the cat.
I was saying that's another reason I can't relate to FE, because I do not see the world in that way. Like you were just explaining, I'm like, okay, I understand that. Mm-hmm. But I just don't see the world that way through, like, status in any way.
Well, I've been working pretty closely, this, with an ISFJ in my workplace. I'm, like, not that I'm, like, holding status, but, when things go wrong in my workplace, I'm normally the first one called and the first one that has to be responsible, because like, my direct supervisor is going to come to me, and then I'm overseeing a lot. And so, like, I've been working with this ISFJ very closely, just trying to help her, because she was really going after status for a while. She just wanted the next promotion to be the next person that's in charge, and it ended up, like, just kind of crumbling on her because it was too much stress. So we've
Yeah,
been,
and then it tends like people aren't going to like you if that's your motive.
yeah. So we've been just deconstructing that. And
Because if you want to be a good leader, it should be more about connection. And that's why I think healthy ENFJs who are good leaders, they have connected more with their FE in the sense of like, I'm going to connect with people.
and that's
to
really
help them.
what we did. We tapped in to this individuals. We tapped into their FE. We built relationships with the people around them. And then they were able to kind of hold like the mantle of leadership. But we also worked a lot on their self-worth, that their identity wasn't coming from the position that they held, but instead it was coming from who they were, which, so I think that there's a lot of times that a lot of us are going to misplace our identity in something, and there might be a propensity for people with FE to quickly place it in their status rather than who they really are.
Yeah, so it's as you said, like, we all have our whatever.
Like, yeah, I mean, I think like an NT can really quickly like misplace their identity in maybe their intelligence and their intellect.
I mean, some NTs can become kind of smug and arrogant and think they're know-it-alls.
Okay, I wouldn't.
It's true.
Yeah. So I think that everyone has, like, just like you said, that, you might procrastinate.
Yeah.
But that's normally gives you time to brood over an idea and come up with a really good option.
Yeah.
Kind of
Because I think some NFs can come off as, like, maybe not super reliable, or, like, maybe that's more SP. I don't know. Anyway, also, I think I would like to read a little bit about FE, because I saved a couple websites.
She did her research.
Probably do that.
Yes. So I think there's just, there might be, like, you're looking at status, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but anytime that we overemphasize a strength that we have, it can become a weakness. So, knowing how to live a balanced life, knowing how to balance your FE with your NI or SI, that would be the next one, and so on, so that it's not just about group feel and am I the best in the group.
Yeah. Okay, so this all comes from personalityjunkie.com.
How do we feel about that website?
They're fine. I'm not opposed. I don't think they actually have a person. Oh, they do have a test on there. I don't know what their test is like. Okay, so feeling types use their feeling functions to weigh use their feeling
types
feeling function to weigh, evaluate, and analyze their affective responses to the world. They generally experience greater saliency, is that how you say that? Variability and diversity of emotion than thinking types do. That's probably pretty obvious. Okay, so let's get to the extroverted feeling. Extroverted feeling is the dominant function of ENFJ and ESFJ. Like extroverted thinking, FE is considered an extroverted judging function. Correct. As you recall, F and T are both judging functions. S and N are both perceiving functions. So I think that's also interesting. Maybe after we're done talking about all of these functions, it's kind of discuss
3 years
the difference between being led by a perception function versus being led by a judgment function. And I think that's part of the reason neither of us also understand FE, like ENFJ and ESFJ is good, because, and it's just a thing. It's like I tend to click and really connect better with people who are led by a perception function. So we're talking NE, NI, SE, or SI. For some reason, I just connect better.
Yeah, and I often get impatient with people who are led with a judging function, and we can get into the ins and out, but oftentimes they're making judgments on the information that they take in very quickly so they can process it.
Yeah.
Where I'm processing the information before I'm making a judgment on it, and so I find their judgments like haphazard. That's
a really good key that I have found for telling the difference between types. Is like analyzing, are you coming to conclusions and judgments more immediately than you are actually processing? or are you seeming to process the information first? That, and maybe it's a little bit subtle, but I can see the difference now, and that's really helped in typing people for me.
And the healthier and the more balanced you become, the harder it is to tell when you meet someone.
Yeah, for sure. Some people are more tricky to tell, either because they're hiding stuff and they're injured, or on the opposite end, they're very healthy and have really balanced themselves. So that's definitely a thing. I don't know what much this can say other than kind of what we said, just on a basic level. I thought maybe we could just kind of talk about some of our experiences with FE, because while we don't ourselves experience it, all I have really is, I mean, we do, right? Of course, we have used FE, but it's probably not very much. It's not as natural for us. And so most of my experience of FE is going to come through and observing people around me that are ENFJ and ESFJ.
Yep.
So we can talk a little bit about...
Well, I think this will dive really well into experience. I think that the one other kind of hallmark for people who have FE is that they're like SJWs, they're social justice warriors. They see
that is true.
An injustice for the group, for the world, and they're driven like to make that right. And I was even expressing earlier, I was like, I have one of my friends that was posting a bunch about their cause, and I was like, man, I love this person. I just want to see a picture of their cat or their kid. Like, I'm tired of seeing about their cause, but it's so much who they are. It's like they
tend to almost find identity in it sometimes too, depending on the person. But like, yeah, I would say that is a little bit of a difference between ESFJ and ENFJ. I think ENFJ in particular tends to be much more like, this is my cause, and I'm going to be full-on activist about it. And it might be multiple things, but they're very passionate and fiery about things. That's a big hallmark of an ENFJ to me. There's like the difference between the ENFJ and ENFP. With the ENFJ, there's like a spicy fire to them. You don't really see very often in the ENFP. So
yeah, ENFP has like the puppy dog.
They're more playful and just
playful,
fun.
Charm, stuff like that.
More easygoing.
And like the ENFJ, they're spicy.
And a lot of the time, and again, it kind of depends on Enneagram, especially in ENFJ 8, but to a degree also in ENFJ 2, because those are the most common for ENFJ. I might bring up Enneagram sometime, so hopefully some of you understand what I'm talking about. And if you don't, we'll talk about Enneagram sometime too. But especially ENFJ 8, it's like there's also like a bulldozing energy to them, where like they just take up the room. It's not quite as much as an ENTJ, right? But they just, even ESFJ, like they, again, not only are they like good with the emotions of people, like they, maybe not entertainers, but they really know how to bring the group together. They know how to rally everyone together, and they're great at hosting groups of people. They tend to love social events. They tend to be definitely more extroverted on the scale than other types, because they just really like connecting with other people. Now, on the extroversion note, something that's really interesting about FE, and we could talk about this, is we have found, especially with ENFJs in particular, again, maybe I'm just not as close to a lot of ESFJs, but ENFJs tend to always think they're INFJs. They tend to always say that when they were very, to me and her, like clearly an ENFJ, but they're so unaware of how extroverted they are. And I find that really fascinating.
Yeah, I would say, and I've said this, I think, every single episode so far, if you identify yourself as an INTJ or an INFJ, there's a really good chance you're wrong right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that just because I want to be special and the only one. I'm saying that just because
Although you are a 4.
Although I are a 4 on the Enneagram. I am one. I think that the kind of the understanding of cognitive functions brings that deeper level of how we function.
Yeah.
Because before I really got well invested in Myers-Briggs and an understanding of it, I thought like if you have a T, that means like you're a cold, calloused person that doesn't have emotions at all. And it's like, actually, no, your cognitive functions all blend together into who you are, and you work on them. So even though I'm an INTJ, that doesn't mean I'm a robot.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I think there's probably several reasons for why a lot of ENFJs tend to just think they're introverted. This isn't true for every ENFJ I've known, but there's been a couple times that I almost feel, again, this is all feeling, so I don't know, it's speculation, but I almost feel like they're so in tune with like other people and like the social stuff that they really value that time alone to recharge and everything, that I think they mistake that for being introverted. And also I think this is also for a lot of other types and for just people in general, there's a misconception, maybe it's not a total misconception, but that, if you're introverted, you are more interesting. If you're introverted, you are more complex and you're deep, and I want to be deep. I want to be interesting. And I've seen that with a couple ENFJs where they call themselves INFJs either because like everyone else that calls themselves an INFJ, it's like they want to be special, but it could also be like, well, the INFJ seems interesting and deep, and I want people to take me more seriously. I want people to see me as more deep and interesting. And that's sad, of course, because especially for me being extroverted, which I have a lot of introversion, but like extroverted types are equally interesting. They can also be deep in a lot of their own ways, right? And so that's kind of sad to me, is like, that's why you want other people to think you're introverted.
Yeah, I think I would maybe use the analogy of like color, right? Is like bright green and bright yellow, when they get turned to dark, or like the darker tones of those colors, they look different, right? Mm-hmm. Then dark green and dark yellow look different. So, like, when you look into your depth and you realize it doesn't look like the depth of someone else, then sometimes you can think that you're lacking instead of really appreciating that depth. And so, like, your own depth looks way different. I was reading her philosophy quotes earlier today. I was reading those to you, and you were like, I don't know what that means, but I like it. Where I'm like, I know exactly what that means. It feeds my soul. Mm-hmm. Now, does that mean that you have less depth than me? No. That means that color, that lens of who I am, is filled with that form of depth.
Well, and like for me, if you tell me one of those quotes, I would need more because I'm more of an F person, I would need more time to process it, to figure out what it means, because I would need to lean more into my T for that, and that's not natural. So I have to take more time to actually understand what's being said, and then what I do with that information is also different.
Like, so I mean, you also have like an expression of depth that when you do a set design for a photography shoot that you want to do, there is an expression of depth in every item that you place in those things that I look at it and I'm like, that's pretty, I like it, but it doesn't feed my soul in the same way. And so I think like the same thing is like an INFJ, their soul is going to be fed through very specific things. A lot of it is like when they're alone, so we don't get to know, so that does make it seem mysterious. But an ENFJ soul is going to be fed in a different way that still has the same amount of value.
So is there anything else you want to say specifically about the ENFJ and the ESFJ? And maybe we can kind of touch on INFJ and ISFJ, how they use FE, but
what else it's hard for me because I have found ENFJ is one of my greatest opportunities to grow in understanding and love. So
that's a very nice way of saying I have a hard time of connecting with that type.
it's one of my greatest opportunities to grow in understanding and love. We've had quite a few ENFJ friends who have lived here, spent time with us, that there are really great times with them and there are really frustrating times with them, because I think a great example, we had a young lady who lived in this house 2 years ago. She came into my room, and like, that's not a problem. I welcome people. I spend most of my time in my room. I'm not going to go find you.
For an INTJ.
So, like, she knocked on my door. She came into my room and she started talking to me, which was lovely. I did not understand what she needed from, like, her coming and talking to me.
Kind of talking to talk.
I could tell she wanted something. Like, her soul was longing for something. Yeah. And I'm just sitting there like, thank you for sharing.
Especially for an NT, it's like, thanks. That's actually one of the things I want to talk about. I forgot, is FE versus FI. So FE, where we said, is about other people. FI is more about the self. So the FE is thinking about the morals, the values of the group, and the group feelings and emotions and what they need. Whereas FI, it's more of a personal thing for the person. So we both use FI, especially me. It's my secondary. So I'm always processing the world through, or I should say coming to conclusions, by processing how does this experience fit in with my own morals, my values. So I'm going inward typically, rather than being super concerned with other people's morals, values, feelings, and how whatever's happening is affecting them. And something I have found in that, I think we've both found in our experiences being around ENFJs and ESFJs, is that they tend to, it's kind of odd, maybe this is where that introversion thing is coming from, where they tend to identify themselves as introverts, is that they're not super in tune with themselves. And I don't think that's crazy to say, because if you think about it...
I figured it out.
What?
She was coming for the FE, for the outward, like, opinion on what everything that she was processing.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm a year late on that one.
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years late. But
yeah,
that's why it was so foreign to me, because I operate out of, like, the FI. Like, how does this match to my values?
They are very much external processors.
But they were trying to figure out not just how it matches to their values, but how it's going to affect all the people around them.
Yeah.
And I just didn't care.
Oh my gosh, that is such an ENFJ and ESFJ thing. They are external processors. They just want to talk through everything, and they want the input of other people. Even though a lot of the time they're not always going to take the input of others, they just need to get it out. They actually have to talk about it. That's why they tend to talk a lot. I've noticed a lot of ENFJs and ESFJs talk a lot, which, like, again, some types like that, right? People that like to listen and are more introverted or whatever. And I find it entertaining, too. Like, personally, maybe you're more annoyed by it. I find it really entertaining, especially ESFJs. I'm like, you just will never shut up.
Well, ISFJs, too. Like, if I sit down and talk...
I mean, there's other types, but I'm just talking about...
Yeah, well, I was just thinking ISFJs have, like, a lot of FE, and I was just thinking of the ISFJ that I meet with quite a lot right now, is I used to sit down and I used to prepare quite a bit for our meetings to, like, help guide them.
Yeah.
And not only have they done so much work that I don't need to do so much to guide them, because they're self-guiding, but also I just need 2 prompt questions to, like, start going in the right direction, and they will talk for an hour.
What's interesting is INFJ is the outlier. The INFJ also uses FE, but they don't really talk a lot. Even in a personal relationship, they don't talk a lot. Like, they talk, but they're not, like, the level of the other 3. But no, yeah, that's what I'm getting at, is, like, they tend to not be super in tune with themselves and what is going on in here, because number one, their FE is by nature much more related to out here. So they're coming to conclusions about things based on the external, based on the social relationships they have. So it is harder for them, just like it's hard for me to do that, what they do, it's hard for them to do what I do naturally, which is FI. So that's also why you'll also find, like, people with FE might not be as good at naturally, like, taking care of themselves and knowing what they need and want because they're not as connected to it. And I also will find, instead of actually really trying to connect with FI, it's more of a surface level where they just try to quickly come to a conclusion, like, oh, I must be feeling this because of XYZ. Where it's like, actually, no, you need to dig deeper. But I mean, like, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, it's because they're led by that judgment function. It needs answers.
Yeah.
Like, the perception functions need questions, and the judging functions need answers.
Yeah. So that's kind of that FE-FI difference. There was a random thing I had thought of with FE, with my experience with both ENFJ and ESFJ. I don't see this as much with ISFJ and INFJ, but FE people are...
Iron, people who eat iron frequently.
FE people are hardcore romantics. Hopeless romantics. Maybe not all of them, okay? Don't be in the comments like, it's not true for me, blah, blah, blah. But it's true most of the time. Like, I experience ENFJ and ESFJ as, like, a huge priority for them is relationship. Like, any relationship, but especially a romantic one. If they're single, that's always on their mind, is finding their person. It's like, I want to find my partner. And if they are in a relationship, it's all about their partner. Like, and again, that can be a really wonderful thing. I think they tend to be very romantic. They tend to be very caring of their partner. But, you know, it can be kind of distracting when you're single, when that's like, it can be hard to slow down and connect with the self and be like, I need to be okay with just me and not rely on having someone else. But again, that's all, like, we have our weaknesses, and ENFJs that work on that, like, maybe they can become more independent. But that's another aspect I was thinking of, like, I don't relate to that. I don't know if that's because of FI, but
well,
I
mean, yeah, you're asking the most independent type right here. Like, how do you relate to, like, that need for, like, is like, I forget about people sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Literally. ISTPs and INTJs probably are not going to experience that at all, hardly.
Yeah. So, but that is true, is, like, I think on all, I don't know very many ESFJs, but I do know quite a few ENFJs, and I think that is quite true, is even when they know that it's a toxic relationship and they can tell you from the beginning, they still jump into it head first.
Yeah.
Like, even when they know this is, like, I'm thinking of that same girl that lived with us.
Yeah.
She had a date. She asked us to come spy on her date, just to kind of give, like, a what do we think of the guy. She came out of the date. The conversation was pretty much like, oh, like, it was weird. It was a weird conversation because it started, we all agreed, like, that guy was a little bit weird. It ended the conversation that we had with her. Like, even though we both agreed, like, I'd be very careful moving forward. I have a bad vibe about this guy. I think I said that more than you did. Yeah. It ended with justifying everything. Everything's a green flag. We can put down all the red flags that came up, and we're going to go for it.
And then sure enough, that relationship ended up being
up in flames.
Really bad. It only lasted like a few weeks.
Ended in a restraining order.
Yeah, like that guy was crazy.
Yeah.
NI is always right. You should always trust NI. Specifically trust every INTJ and INFJ.
Yeah. Well, that's funny because, like, an ENFJ does use, or they do have NI. I shouldn't say they should use NI because I don't know if I've ever seen that.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
Wait, what did you say?
I said ENFJs, they do use, no, they have.
Yeah.
But, like, they do. But, again, NI is a lot of questions and a lot of, like, letting things be and waiting on things and the mystery.
Yeah.
Where FE is answers, because that's the judging function. So it can be very, very, like, I think you should be really aware, right? If you're NI, you could stay in mystery and never, like, put your finger on something and say go.
Yeah.
But if your dominant is the FE and you have NI, you can just completely overshadow
Override
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's true for any type. Like, I could override my FI. You have to work on being in tune with your other functions if you want to grow and develop and be healthy.
You could long so much for the next new experience that you could violate something in yourself. Yeah. I could long so much for the next mystery that the TE that I have doesn't look for the answer.
It's a good way of saying that. We should quote that.
It's going to be on T-shirts next.
Our next merch.
Our very first merch.
Our very first merch.
NI never lies. And whatever I said before.
Yeah, so I think, because I was saying, like, I've never... relationships are great, and I would love to have that, but... I guess. But it's never been a thing for me. I know for my sister as a teenager, she had a lot of boyfriends. Like, she dated quite a few people and had boyfriends. I didn't date at all as a teenager. I could just see the difference. And she got married very young, like, very much about relationships. I see that with other ENFJs and ESFJs as well. The ESFJ that was my roommate that I talked about earlier, she literally she was very honest. Part of the reason she moved here from the UK was to find her husband. She's like, I want to find my husband. But for me, I'm like, I don't understand that. It's never been like a goal of mine. Like, I need this, a motivator in my life.
Yeah, and we both have a current acquaintance that we're pretty sure we were talking was like, is she an ISTJ today? Yeah. Or ISFJ today? But we're pretty sure she's an ENFJ. Yeah. That, like... that is kind of a constant dialogue that happens. Like, oh, I met this new person. He could be the one. And I'm like, what even is the one?
Because of that, they tend to fall really hard fast.
I mean, there was a little bit of a situation. I don't want to dive too much into it. But it was like one night, they were pretty sure that this person was going to be their spouse. And when they found out that this person was already dating someone else that we know, like, it became this huge drama thing.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's probably all interesting enough. We could go even deeper into each of the types. But we have a little quote-unquote game. It's not really a game, but we want to go over...
our apologies that we weren't able to talk about all of the positives.
Actually, no, I think that was pretty good.
Okay, let's talk about more negatives then.
I mean, because there were a few negatives, but I think a lot of it is just like, this is like a feature, a highlight of that type.
But I just want to come back. I'm wearing this pink tie as an homage to Mean Girls because it's a Wednesday. Yes.
That's a good segue.
And on Wednesdays, we wear pink. And it's in honor of my favorite...
Regina George.
ESFJ, Regina George. She is...
It's a good segue because we're almost to an hour. We want to talk about characters we think are ENFJ or ESFJ. We do think Regina George is an ESFJ. And again, this is the type of thing where we were looking at some of these characters and what people think online. And so many of them, like, I super strongly disagree with that. So we'll try to give a little bit of an explanation, but keep in mind some of these are just like, it's just a vibe. Like, I can't explain it. It's just they're an ENFJ.
Yeah. And it's what's even really funny about it is that there was, I don't remember who we were discussing, but we were discussing the difference between ESFJ and ESTP. And it was like, which one of us is disgusted by this person and which one of us finds them charming and entertaining? Because I find ESFJs, for the most part, charming and entertaining. She finds them slimy. But I find ESTPs slimy. Like, I'm talking in broad generalizations, not in every specific one we meet.
Well, I don't want people to be offended, because I do generally know ESFJs that I love. I maybe don't super click with them, but I love them.
But, like, broad generalizations, I tend to find ESTPs just slimy because of, like, the way that they have fun and the way that they're chameleons just doesn't vibe with me. But she finds them very charming.
You know, there is also something... I would call her my bully when I was in middle school or high school or whatever.
Bully.
But they're only a bully if you feel bullied. And it didn't really work on me. And what was ironic is when we actually had a meet, because she got exposed for what she was doing, so we had a meeting with all of our church leaders at that time. And it was hilarious because you have all these people involved that are sobbing and crying. I was the victim. I was sitting there like dry eyes. wasn't bothered at all. I was just like, so she was a bully, but not really a bully. So the girl that was like, did all that stuff to me, she was an ESFJ. And again, I think a very unhealthy one and really giving into like the status thing. And she was trying to bring me down because of whatever reason, jealousy or something. I know that's easy to say, but like, it was just weird. I had nothing against, I didn't care, but it was like this, I have to bring you down. And so she was like bullying me through text and like doing all this dirty stuff behind the scenes. Anyway, we were 15, it's ridiculous. But that's kind of my point, is a lot of ESFJ characters are sort of like the classic mean girl character, tend to be ESFJs. But there's also, we have on the list here, a lot of ESFJs that are wonderful, and I freaking love them.
Yeah, just because these are our greatest opportunities to love
Yeah.
does not mean that they're bad people. Because I'm sure I am someone's greatest opportunity to love. Probably most people's greatest opportunity to love.
I have known people that do not get along with you.
Surprise.
I don't know if I've met a lot of people that don't get along with me. Just saying, everyone loves the ENFP.
What I will say for you is, how do I say it? A lot of people. You are the best friend to a lot of people, but they are not your best friend.
Yeah, I have a really good way of like, because it's kind of like, I haven't really met anyone that I'm like, I hate you. There are some people that like, very rarely has there been a person like, I really can't stand you and I can't be around you. But I certainly am not going to let them know that or be aware of that. But even if I don't super click with someone, I can find something I like about them, so I can tolerate being with them and like even enjoy their company. And because of that, and I tend to like want to like have people feel accepted, then a lot of people will take that as, oh, I'm like their best friend. And then that's kind of awkward for me because I'm like, I don't see it that way, but I just want to be friendly to people. I'm sure a lot of ENFPs relate to that. So anyway, let's go down this list. We're going to start with ESFJ. And I'm going to try to just quickly go over them. I don't want us to spend too much time explaining why we think, but if we really feel like we need to, we will. So we made this list last night. Or maybe it was the night before. I don't know.
We've been thinking about this for over a year.
Over 24 hours.
We've been friends for hundreds of days.
We literally whipped this up just trying to think of characters. So, ESFJ, I don't know how many. I have over 10 on here.
All
for
right,
sure.
we'll just go through them all.
So, Lex from Smallville.
Lex
Lex Luthor from Smallville. Which I love Lex Luthor in Smallville. He was a fantastic character. Probably the best character in my opinion.
Probably the best actor. Who is that? Michael
something weird long last name.
Michael something weird long last name from Smallville.
ESFJ.
He had a really good arc too, I think.
Amazing.
Like, it's not just the stereotypical. Because, like, a lot of times you're going to see a stereotypical character. But the character arc that he had and the growth that he went through.
We're already doing it.
Sorry. And
now
the
we're going into film and, like, character
growth
design.
that he went through, I think, shows a little bit more of the nuances of an ENFJ. Or ESFJ.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic, like, well-developed character to show the depths of ESFJ. Regina George.
Who did not have a really good arc that showed the depth of an ESFJ.
I mean, like, by the end, she, there was a turnaround, but yeah.
The bus.
It's a very surfacey movie. So Regina George, we're not sure, but maybe Kronk from Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah.
Maybe. A lot of people online say that, and I was like, yeah, I could, maybe.
We were saying, like, I think the assumption we want to go with was ESFP, because he's kind of like a himbo. But
I was on the line, but also the fact that he loves, like, cooking for people and being a hostess,
Yeah,
host.
I think I've seen this on Tumblr, where, that scene where Kronk is, like, at the restaurant trying to fix Yzma's meal, and goes in and the chef quits, and then they come back with, like, an order, and the waitress is like, I'm waiting, and you can just see on his face, like, everybody is depending on me now. I will not let that waitress go home without a paycheck. And, like, he starts cooking everything, and he takes it so seriously.
Yeah.
I think that's, like, the quintessential, like, FE moment.
Yeah. Miss Piggy. Miss Piggy. I think Miss Piggy is an ESFJ.
From the Muppets.
Is there another Miss Piggy?
Well, last night you were like, who's the piggy from Harry
Oh, I
Potter?
called her-
Mrs. Piggy.
I
And I'm
called
like,
Miss Piggy from Harry Potter, Mrs. Umbridge.
yeah, Professor Umbridge, she called her Miss Piggy, and I'm just staring at her confused.
Tahani. Oh, Effie Trinket. I think Effie Trinket is ESFJ.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking love her.
Hunger Games.
Hunger Games.
Played
Effie Trinket.
by
And it makes sense. F.E.
Elizabeth
Elizabeth Banks.
Banks,
Who
yeah.
also oddly directed Cocaine Bear.
Fantastic
film.
That's your plug for Cocaine Bear. I have not seen it. She has seen it 3 times.
It's freaking great. Actually, I've only seen it twice.
Tahani from A Good Place.
Tahani from A Good Place. If you've seen that show. Also, lovely ESFJ. I like her. Howard from Better Call Saul.
Howard deserved better.
Howard, I believe, is an ESFJ. And again, I would get into all these reasons. If you really want me to explain, maybe leave a comment and I can try to explain to you
There's
in text.
there's something so classy about Howard.
That's also the thing. He always dresses so sharp and so well. There's just the mannerisms about him is so ESFJ.
Like everyone on that list, if you actually think about it, has class and like how they dress and like a lot of their mannerisms. I mean, Kronk, maybe not, but
We thought maybe Malfoy.
Draco Malfoy.
Again, that's the only Malfoy that
Lucius.
probably exists. Well, yeah, that's true. He actually might also be an ESFJ.
Yeah, we didn't think about that.
I didn't think about that, but that might be true. Gaston.
From Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast. Gaston is an ESFJ.
It was funny because I find Gaston, like, he's sleazy but entertaining.
Yeah.
She finds him disgusting.
I really don't. I've never liked Gaston. If any of you watch/read Attack on Titan, Hitch from Attack on Titan, she's not like a major character at all, but some of you might remember her. She's an ESFJ. If any of you have seen Cruel Summer, we've both watched Cruel Summer. Joy Wallace, who is Kate's mom in the show, is very ESFJ. She's very unhealthy, bad ESFJ.
Yeah. I will say that ESFJs are not prone to be bad moms, just in that show.
Yeah, just in that show. If you are familiar with the show Lost, Juliet from Lost, the blonde lady who was in Dharma and everything, in a relationship with Sawyer, she is an ESFJ as well. And Disgust from Inside Out,
Yes, the green one.
the super fashionable character.
Did you like Disgust, or did you just find her like, ugh?
I like her.
Okay.
Yeah.
So see, she does like some.
I just said there's a bunch of characters in ESFJ that I love.
I know.
Yeah. Okay, so ENFJ now. Judy Hopps from Zootopia.
That was the main character.
I have noticed a lot of main characters, like especially main heroines of books and films, shows, tend to be ENFJs, or a lot of main characters are also INFP. It depends on the vibe of the show and what they're going for. If it's very much focused on the main character, like driving the story, rather than the other characters around them, they tend to be ENFJs because they're so spicy and fiery. It's like they're so interesting to watch and entertaining to watch.
Yeah, what I'd say is, like, it's correct what you said about driving the story. So there's been like this arc, right, where for a long time the story is what happened to the protagonist. And so INFPs are a really good example of that. But what happened is, like, especially with like women's movements, so like being powerful women and like all of that stuff, and women being people and like someone to be thought of as equal to a man, it's like they can no longer be passive heroes.
Yeah.
So a lot of things that you're seeing now, they're coming out with women as the protagonist in the story or in the movie.
And they're driving the story arc rather than the story, like, just bringing them along with it.
They need to be what's happening to the story, and they
Yeah.
need to be powerful and spicy.
Yeah.
And still
so the
likable.
ENFJ is perfect for that usually.
The ENFJ is perfect for that. But what you'll see still with stories with like a lot of male leads, you're going to still see a lot of INFP, a lot more like passive, it's happening to me, or like STP.
Yeah.
like someone that's just fun and entertaining to watch and like the action star, but they're not actually what's like driving the story in that way.
Yeah. So with that said,
That's just a commentary on culture.
That's what you'll see with a lot of these characters on this list. So Judy Hopps, Zootopia. I think I've never read Harry Potter, like the books. I have just seen Hermione in the film versions. I think she's an ENFJ.
Played by Emma Watson.
Probably debated online, I've seen, but I really think she's an ENFJ. She's definitely more of like a brainy type of ENFJ. She's more in tune with T, but she gives off big ENFJ energy.
Well, in the books, which you have not read, disgrace, but she does this like the house elves are like the servants, right? You remember that from the movie, like Dobby and stuff. She does a house elf liberation front where she's like trying to free all the house elves, but the house elves are like, we're chill, you know, this is who we like. It's really deep embedded racism in the books. So we could talk about that all day, but
that's not what this podcast
that's not
is
what
about.
this podcast is about. But
you should start a Harry Potter podcast where you delve into the
Harry Potter still has a huge fan base.
And a lot of controversy.
And a lot of controversy still. But she was just like, she was so moved for that justice in her, which is a reason why I think even in the books, even though she's supposed to be like brainy, she's not brainy in an NT type of creative way.
Yeah. We also have, I haven't seen Clueless for a while, but I have a feeling Cher, the main character, was an ENFJ.
Alicia Silverstone?
Yeah, she could have been ENFP, but I think she was ENFJ.
As if.
Chloe from Smallville, who ended up joining a cult. Anyway.
That was not Chloe. That was her actress. Allison. Something. I don't know why we're blanking on last names. But like her character was like, a lot of people argue that she'd be like an ENFP, but she's
my mom.
Yeah, the one person that we actually probably put on a pedestal in deciding like Myers-Briggs people.
Yeah, she's an ENFJ. Leslie Knope.
Parks and Rec.
Again, people have also said she's ENFP. I really see her as like much stronger. Not to say ENFPs aren't strong in their own way. It's just much more of like a
spicy
and like I'm in charge and I'm good. You know, that's very much more ENFJ. So a lot of people have said Wonder Woman. I actually have never watched Marvel.
It's been a long time. Okay, first of all, you just really embarrassed yourself. Wonder Woman is DC.
Oh,
so
that either. Except for Batman. I like Batman.
Yeah,
you just embarrassed yourself. That shows how much I know.
I've never really watched Marvel. How embarrassing. It's been a while since I've seen it too, but I would say
possibly.
Just with the commentary that I gave earlier on women like being the driving of the story.
This is very random, but if you ever watched Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, I loved that growing up. Wilt, he's the big red dude.
Tall red dude.
Yeah, he's, I think, an ENFJ. Very random character, dude. Possibly Jasmine from Aladdin. No, I'm not really sure. She's a little tricky for me to figure out.
I think in the live-action remake of Aladdin, it's a lot more because she had that empowerment movement where it was Naomi Scott who played that. She did a wonderful job bringing that to life.
The way she just really sticks up for herself.
She sticks up for herself, and she ends up sticking up like for a kingdom a lot in like the live-action remake. In the not live-action remake, in the original animated classic,
she's still
spicy and fiery, but like she just doesn't have as much of an arc.
Yeah. Also, don't totally know about this one, but Woody from
Toy Story.
It was gonna be Toys R Us. I was like, what?
Woody from my brother, Toy Story came out in 1994.
Yeah.
And so my brother was born in 1993. This makes sense. So when Toy Story was like kind of like coming to, so he was like probably 3 or 4. Mm-hmm. So Toy Story been out for a couple of years. He had the drawstring Woody from Toys R Us.
Yeah.
There's a snake in my boots.
Damn, what a time. I never had one of them. None of my brothers did. But I remember that those were a thing. You could get those. Nancy Wheeler from Stranger Things. Love her as... she's an ENFJ character that I love.
She's kind of quiet one.
She's maybe a more quiet one for sure, but I definitely think she's an ENFJ. She's a great character in that show, like a central piece. I love her bravery. She's always been super brave, and that's another difference between ENFJ and ENFP. ENFPs tend to be more timid and cautious, typically. ENFJ is pretty much all of the ones I've seen. Again, maybe it's because they're driven by that judgment function. They just jump on things, and they're less, like, afraid to jump into something.
I think, like, yeah, also you see a really good arc character growth with Nancy Wheeler.
And what's his name? He's not an ENFJ, but...
Steve? Yeah, because
Everyone
Nancy
loves
started,
Steve.
like, super shallow, just about, you know, the boy or whatever, Steve.
Yeah.
And grew into, like, I have to do what's right.
A good example of a healthy ENFJ.
Really good, yeah. And, like, Steve also, like, shout out.
Am I the only one eating these?
No, I'm eating both. You're pretty much just eating the blueberries.
No, I've been eating blackberries.
Okay, she's eating both too. But, like, yeah, his character was going to have, like, a 4-episode arc and then be done. But because of his charm and the way that they were able to do that arc,
I'm glad they kept him.
Became a fan favorite.
I don't know what type he is, but he's great. Okay, this is probably not fair at all. I'm very aware of that. I'm going to say it anyway. I've never seen Emily in Paris. I have no desire to. Some of the fashion looks really cute, but I'm still not ever going to watch it. This is totally based on vibes. Emily is an ENFJ. Don't ask me because I've never really watched it. I have seen clips of it, and I'm like, ENFJ.
That just brings up... I love The Devil Wears Prada.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, Emily Blunt played Emily in The Devil Wears Prada as the assistant.
She's the only Emily that deserved to go to Paris.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
She gets hit by a car and
again,
isn't able to go to Paris.
Back to Cruel Summer. Cindy Turner, Jeanette's mom. That's kind of ironic. So, Kate's mom, Joy Wallace, was ESFJ. I think Jeanette's mom, Cindy Turner, was ENFJ. Which is kind of funny because they actually used to be close friends, I guess, in high school or something.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of Cruel Summer, highly recommend that show if you haven't seen it.
Season 2 is coming out eventually, and you were surprised because it's not canonical, right? It's going to be a different decade, different people.
Yeah, there's a word for that type of show. I forgot, but it's like the storyline and... Sorry, we're back.
Well, I'm glad we weren't live streaming in that moment.
Well, this would have been fine. It was just something happened, a surge or something. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, it's like Cruel Summer is the type of show, I guess, where the season 1, it's one storyline with all these characters. The next season is totally different. It's a different story, different characters from storyline. It's like they leave that one there. I've seen some shows like that. So we'll see how it is.
Do you think they're going to tie all the threads together in the end?
That would be pretty fascinating.
That would have been written
but it looks like it's at a different time period, so... and then the last one, very last one, is Joy from Inside Out. For a long time, I thought Joy from Inside Out was an ENFP, and in some ways that makes sense, but I really do think she's an ENFJ.
Yeah, I made that argument pretty hard the other night, where I was
yeah,
just...
that makes sense.
Like, not because I think that Joy is, like, lacking the qualities of an ENFP, but because she has the added quality of, like, really wanting to make sure that, like, we're putting
everyone's happy.
We're putting judgment on these memories, like, and these experiences.
She tends to really want to kind of control what's happening and lead the group. She is the leader, and also she's really wanting everyone else to be good. Like, let's make everything happy and good. And yes, that's an ENFP thing, but I think ENFJs especially, it's like they're just concerned with everyone else. It's not so much so that they can feel better and not deal with conflict. It's just so that we need to have everyone be peaceful. I want everyone to feel good. I was like, yeah. We are literally filming.
No, I'm so sorry. The cats were hissing outside, so I was just trying to break them up.
Oh, she was breaking up a fight. Okay, so those, that's that. Also, so before we go, we did actually, months ago, we filmed a little segment. I'm going to upload it as its own video on our YouTube, and whenever that's ready, click on the notification bell. That's probably the best way. You'll get a notification when that goes up.
Oh, that's clever. This is how we get people to
Hey, that's what the notification...
like and subscribe and hit notifications.
Yes, that's what the notification bell is for, right?
But,
okay.
so
Easiest way.
with each of these, we're doing activities outside of like just us sitting around a table and talking about things that are exercising that cognitive function as best as we can.
It's really fun doing these ones where we don't use FE, so we're like, let's go do a silly activity where we can practice our FE. So we came up with a fun idea. We went to the Winco parking lot, and we filmed us, because we were like, okay, how are we going to practice FE? Let's find a cause to get behind and then do something about it.
But every cause we kind of brought up, I wasn't very passionate about for a while. Like, how do we feel about this? Like, I guess that's bad.
So we had to find one that we felt decently somewhat passionate about. And so we were like, we both, you probably more than me, get annoyed when people don't put their freaking carts back after they're done using them when they're at the store. Okay? So we were like, we made a freaking poster that said, have a heart, return your cart. And we went out and we practiced our FE and we rallied around a cause, and we put in the work too. We put the carts back.
Yep.
We went around the parking lot and put carts back. So that was a really fun video to do.
It was like 110 degrees outside when we did that also.
It was so hot.
So, like, we paid the price.
So that will be a very fun episode. Little segment. It's
little short.
It's not gonna be tuper. It's gonna be super long. It's not gonna be super long. It's gonna be pretty short. But yeah, so with each of them, we're gonna try to like do a fun little. SE should be really fun.
Yeah, SE should be really fun. Haven't quite figured out TE yet.
The introverted ones are going to be harder.
The introverted ones are going to be harder, but I think I'm pretty excited. I think for we're going to do cooking without recipes. Like baking without recipes.
Really have to use your intuition for that. I will fail.
I won't.
Anyway, I think that's pretty much everything. We have gotten to a minute 12.
A minute 12!
A minute 12, an hour 12.
Yeah, so we have no promises because we're just like, we're part-time people. I have a full-time job. I'm also a student. I'm going back to school. You're a student. You're also working on some of your other projects.
And I have a sleep disorder, so
and
I
she
sleep
has
a lot.
a sleep disorder. So there's, we want to do this. We value being able to do this. We really enjoy doing this.
Yes, I really like that. We love doing it.
But getting consistency in doing it it's going to be a little ways for us. But we're hoping more than once every 9 months we'll be a more consistent.
This really is a whole thing. Like, we have to do the whole setup, make sure all of the technical stuff is set up right. It just takes quite a few hours out of the day.
We have to find a new owl every time.
Then on top of that, I was having to edit everything, which takes sometimes days to get everything right, depending on how much I'm editing. So that's, again, another reason we want to go live is to take that aspect out. So we have much extra time.
And we want to be more connected with the 5 of you that are viewing.
Yeah, our 5 people.
We want, like, if y'all are able to, like, log on when we're able to go live and give us comments, like, we'll be able to interact with you. And even, like, if you comment on stuff, things you're interested in, things you care about,
you can
things
ask
you want
us
to know
to
more.
talk about things.
Yeah.
Please don't come in and say, hey, can I see pictures of your feet or something? Like, that's weird. We don't need that.
Please don't be creepy.
So, and then also, seriously, subscribe, of course, and make sure the bell is on, because I started doing that for YouTube channels, and I'm actually really glad I did, because the ones that I really care about. So if you really care about this and want to see, like, our fun videos
the
coming
100
out,
episode the 100 channel she really cares about.
Press the notification bell, because I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that channel, or I forgot I was going to watch that. So thank you. Also, try to leave a comment if you can, because that helps with engagement. It helps us grow our channel, and will give us more incentive to keep posting.
Yeah, it probably, I'm pretty much like every week, unless I'm traveling, asking like, hey, do you want to see if we can try and film?
Yeah.
And you know, like the last couple of months have been really challenging for us. I've been traveling a bit. You've been traveling a bit. I think this month
Well, in this summer we're going to be traveling, so again, we're maybe at least once a month. Maybe we can even try twice.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But yeah, it takes a little bit, like, you know, I got a lot of knowledge up here in this noggin. You got a lot of knowledge. But we also don't want to spread misinformation because there is a lot of misinformation and identity tied around personality. And so we want to do our due diligence too. So it takes research.
Yep.
So.
All right.
Do your own research so we can just do misinformation.
I love you guys. I'm not going to say we because I know she's not going to say that, but I love you. Come back next time because we might have more cats. And you still, I don't know if you guys have met the baby yet. Our baby cat.
I was hoping to have the baby on with me today, but she was busy, and so Archie came for treats.
Come back next time and you might meet her, and hopefully we'll be live, and you can come and chat with us, or watch it later after we're live. Okay, love you. We're gonna go get donuts.
Oh, yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.
See you later.